What's a disturbing secret you'll never admit in real life, but will gladly confess here? Story 1. My parents have owned a second-hand clothing store in our town for over 30 years, making it a well-established part of the community. A few years ago, during my late high school and early college days, I began managing the store on certain days and evenings when my parents weren't around. We had a steady flow of customers, and people appreciated us because we offered brands that were otherwise impossible to find in our town. I had this idea, probably not the best one, of installing a camera in the dressing room. I ordered a remote camera online that I could stream and record from. One night, I stayed late to close the shop and told my parents I'd be going out with friends afterward, which was pretty normal, so they didn't question it. I slipped to the back and set up the camera at a 45-degree angle inside a vent above the main floor, aiming it toward the dressing room. I used the wall mirror for a reflection angle and rigged a magnet to hold the camera in place so it wouldn't be visible from the floor or inside the dressing room. The camera was powered over Ethernet through a switch. It took me a few hours to get everything set up. I had the camera there for over 1.5 years. I would basically sit behind the counter with a laptop and watch people go into the fitting room to try stuff on. I would record and keep what I wanted. I probably have video of almost every female in town. It became an addiction. I would volunteer to work at the store often. My parents thought I was showing initiative and caring about the family business. I did. I loved the store and what my family had. It was the camera that kept bringing my back. I got to the point where I would watch the camera from home in college. I was always searching for a Wi-Fi connection to see. I did not care at one point. I was watching and recording any female. Pretty, average, ugly, old, young, anyone. I became addicted to the videos. I had multiple hard drives packed with videos, thousands of them. I rarely watched the recordings. Mostly, I just stored them. I was constantly adjusting the camera to get better angles or to keep it better hidden. Eventually, I convinced my parents to add a second fitting room, claiming it was necessary for the weekend rush. Once that was done, I installed a second camera, more videos, more recordings. I didn't know how to stop. I didn't want my parents to get into trouble if the camera was ever discovered, so one day I made a firm decision. I erased everything, formatted all the hard drives. It was all gone. For over a month, I felt depressed, going through classic withdrawal symptoms, sweating, shaking, hiding in my room. I made excuses to avoid going to the store. Sometimes I'd start up the remote camera feed, only to shut it off immediately. I even deleted the software from my laptop. I was sad and conflicted. Eventually, I went back to the store and uninstalled one of the 2 cameras, but I couldn't bring myself to uninstall the first one. Mentally, I just couldn't do it. That moment was the trigger. I started watching again. I didn't record this time. I just watched. Whenever I wasn't working in college or doing something else, I was glued to the video feed. It didn't matter how old the women were or what they looked like. I just wanted to see them change or be bare in their skin. It became my addiction all over again. I kept it up for several more months before finally going cold turkey. I uninstalled the camera and threw it away. I desperately needed to break free. It was consuming me. Slowly, I recovered, returned to the store, and became productive again. That chapter was a dark mess in my life, but I'm grateful it's behind me now. Before we continue, do us a quick favor. Smash that like button and subscribe to support our channel. Story 2. I slept with my boss hoping for special treatment. Ended up getting her fired instead. About 10 years ago, when I was 20, I landed a corporate job at a large company competing with IBM and Dell. My manager, John, was nearing retirement and had recently transferred from another state into a lighter role at our office. He took me under his wing, teaching me everything I needed to know about climbing the corporate ladder. Within 2 years, I took over his position when he retired. John had a regional supervisor named Monica, who made great money and had a pretty easy workload, a dream job, and the next real step for me. A week before John retired, we went out to lunch, and I asked him how I could get Monica's job. He told me he'd known her a long time and that I'd have to wait for her to retire, which could be 5 or more years since she was a workaholic. I wasn't about to wait that long. Monica worked in the office 3 days a week, so I made it my mission to befriend her. I looked for every chance to pop into her office or make small talk. I studied her schedule and habits, brought her extra food that fit her diet, offered to take on some of her work. Basically, I kissed her at every opportunity. Monica was in her mid-50s, Not unattractive, but her age was showing. She had a slight resemblance to Kathy Lee Gifford. After about 4 months of me going out of my way to serve her, she made an unexpected request. There was a monthly supervisor's brunch coming up, and she wanted me to tag along as a learning experience. I thought I'd finally weaseled my way in, and it seemed like it was paying off. But she had a different plan. When we arrived, she told me to wait in the car for about 15 minutes. When she returned, she kissed me, then drove us to a nearby hotel she had booked. She wanted us to sleep together. I was completely caught off guard. Everything happened so fast. Afterwards, she felt incredibly guilty and ended up talking for hours about her life and marriage. Her husband had suffered a work accident that left him with severe erectile dysfunction. Apparently, he couldn't perform for more than a few minutes, even with Viagra, due to nerve damage or something. Her intimate life was basically non-existent. When I showed interest in her at work, she developed feelings for me and assumed I was pursuing her romantically. This was not what I had planned. After about a week of almost no communication with Monica, I decided to use the situation as leverage to advance my career. I asked if she wanted to grab lunch, and somehow we ended up at her place. This arrangement worked well for about 3 years. During that time, I received several raises and promotions across different departments. She knew our relationship was mostly physical, but I could tell she developed deep feelings for me. She would often buy me expensive gifts and planned weekend getaways, all at her expense. We never had a clear conversation about what we were doing, but essentially, I was getting preferred treatment at work in exchange for providing her emotional and physical support. There were often awkward moments when it became clear our relationship was mostly physical and lacked any real romantic foundation. This led to her becoming aggressively physical, leaving deep scratch marks, bite marks, and deliberately trying to leave visible hickeys on me. She also exerted dominance at work, making it obvious she held power over me to the point of embarrassment. This behavior started around the 2nd year of our arrangement and only intensified, especially in the final year. The last straw came when she changed my schedule to a swing shift. My workday now started at 4 p.m. and didn't end until after midnight. She didn't want me socializing with anyone, especially other women. Then she added weekend shifts to my schedule. She started showing up at work to pick me up since her husband couldn't drive. After dropping him off somewhere, she would come get me if I was working. Sometimes she'd take me out to eat or shopping, but most of the time we'd end up at her place or a hotel she booked, for banging of course. She was terrible at texting, so she emailed me constantly asking what I was up to. Eventually, I told her our relationship had run its course. I was about 4 months away from being fully vested with the company and had already lined up a job offer from a competitor that would let me finish my last 4 months before starting there. I requested a transfer to a department outside of Monica's control because of her aggressive behavior. The regional director scheduled a meeting with me to start the process. During the meeting, she asked about my goals. I told her I just wanted the transfer and briefly mentioned that my original goal had been to take over Monica's job, but that was no longer my plan. The transfer required me to stay in the new position for at least 1 year, so I told the director I planned to leave as soon as I was fully vested with the company. Suddenly, the conversation shifted. The director offered me Monica's job. She explained that Monica had lost focus over the past few years, missing deadlines, taking excessive sick days and vacation, and frequently failing to respond to emails and phone calls promptly. The director said all I had to do was sign the offer letter, and I could start in 2 weeks. I signed it. Monica was fired that same day. A year later, her husband passed away. She now works at a department store in the local mall. And I still have her job. Story 3. To start off, my wife and I are coming up on our 20th anniversary next year. We've built a strong, loving marriage and have 3 amazing kids. But to really appreciate where we are now, let's rewind to when it all began. We started dating in high school. I was 19, heading into my senior year, and she was 18, about to start her junior year. Things were great between us. We had a lot of fun, shared a love for partying, getting high, drinking beer, and just soaking up that wild teenage energy. That summer, she took on a house-sitting gig for a family member who was going on an extended vacation. The deal was that she'd look after their pets while they were away. My best friend, let's call him Jay, and I used to spend a lot of time over there. We'd hang out, smoke cigarettes, drink beer, and get high. It was just our scene back then. At the time, I had this habit of drinking until I completely blacked out and wouldn't remember a thing the next day. One night, I did exactly that. I passed out hard and woke up alone on the couch around 2 a.m., groggy and needing to pee like crazy. As I was making my way down the hall, I suddenly heard a noise coming from one of the bedrooms. I stopped in my tracks to listen more closely. And yeah, it was the unmistakable sound of cheeks clapping, loud and clear through the door. It didn't hit me at first that we were the only 3 people in the house until I got down on the floor and peeked under the door. Inside, I saw Jay pounding the hell out of my girlfriend. But instead of feeling angry and bothered, for some reason I felt strangely excited. Now I consider myself of average size, about 6 inches, but Jay was hung like a frigging mule, over 9 inches, and she was enjoying every bit of it. After about 15 to 20 minutes they were finally done, and I crept back downstairs and got back on the couch. My girlfriend got in the shower, and then went to bed in her room, while Jay stayed in the other bedroom. Needless to say, I couldn't sleep the rest of that night, and actually wound up soloing off to the memory of it. The next day, they both acted like nothing had happened. Everything seemed totally normal, and we all just went about our day. That night, I decided to get drunk again. But this time, I kept it together more than they realized. I played it off like I had passed out just like before. About an hour and a half later, I heard them start making out, and then they disappeared into the bedroom. I slowly went up, peered back under the door, and saw Jay sitting on the bed and my girlfriend giving him a blowy. After about 5 minutes of this, she got up on the bed and started doing it Scooby-Doo style. I began to solo off watching them, laying on my side on the floor. I reached the finish line way before they did, so I went at it again while they were still doing it. Anyway, that routine continued through the rest of the summer. I kept pretending to pass out while they spent their nights together, unaware that I was quietly watching from the hallway. What made it all the more surreal was that my girlfriend and I were still regularly intimate during that time. There were days when it was just the 2 of us, and we'd do it multiple times. Then later that same night, she'd be with him too. Afterward, she'd shower, come back, and curl up next to me like nothing was out of the ordinary. Eventually, summer came to an end. School started back up, Jay got himself a new girlfriend, and the 2 of us gradually drifted apart. The strange thing is, even after more than 20 years, this memory still crosses my mind from time to time, sometimes even during intimate moments with my wife, and I find it incredibly charging. I've never shared this with anyone before, so I'm not sure if that makes me weird or just human. I'd really appreciate any thoughts or perspectives anyone's willing to share. Story 4. My wife's nephew is actually my son, and no one knows, not even his mom. I feel like I need to say this once. If by some wild chance someone else has been through something similar, maybe you could share how you cope or live with it. About 3.5 years ago, my wife and I went to a party with my sister-in-law while we were visiting her at college. The night was fun but pretty low-key. I ended up spending most of it talking and drinking with my sister-in-law. My wife got really tired and went to bed early with her sister and her sister's friend, a girl who lived in the house. I was still drinking and chatting with some random guy when his girlfriend joined us, and we all started talking. Then I saw my sister-in-law walk by. She said she wasn't sleepy and wanted to have some fun, then sat down on my lap. We stayed up for another hour or so, drinking with them. Later, the guy said he and his girlfriend were heading to his place, so we could use her bed upstairs. We were both pretty drunk, but I think she was way more intoxicated than I was by that point. When the couple left, it was just me and my sister-in-law awake. We were super drunk, laughing at each other, and ended up going upstairs. I was already feeling things from her sitting on me, but honestly, I wasn't expecting what happened next. I went into the room first and flopped face down on the bed. She turned off the lights and climbed in too. As I rolled over, she got on top of me, and we started kissing. I'm not exactly sure how it all unfolded, but it was clear we were going to do it. I remember both of us trying to get our clothing off. I ended up doing Scooby-Doo style from behind. After we were done, I lay down beside her. Her face was turned away toward the wall. I said something, but she didn't respond. When I looked at her, she was completely asleep or passed out. I've thought about it a million times since then, and I'm pretty sure she was still awake when we started. But honestly, I finished quickly, and she didn't seem to move at all. Anyway, I left her there, covered her with blankets, and started walking back to her apartment. I remember feeling surprisingly sober and pretty freaked out during that walk. Honestly, I didn't think she'd forget what happened the next day, so I was really anxious about having to face it in the morning. The next morning, my wife woke me up like everything was normal and wanted to go grab coffee and some greasy food. I went with her, but inside I felt terrible. When we got back, my sister-in-law was at her apartment, clearly upset. Later, my wife told me she thinks my sister-in-law was SA'd, and she and her friends suspect it was this guy she dated but refused to sleep with. The same one who was at the party. About 4 days later, my sister-in-law pulled me aside and asked if I knew anything. She admitted she'd been acting flirtatious and slutty, saying she was kind of teasing me and messing around while we were talking to that random guy and his girlfriend. Honestly, it was mostly playful stuff, like she might have grabbed my crotch over my clothes as a joke. I told her I went upstairs after she did, and then I went back to the apartment. She was really drunk. So, that's basically the story. She ended up pregnant from that night, and everyone, her friends and my whole extended family, assumed it was this other guy, who's actually an a-hole, so it was easy for them to believe. After that, she dropped out and moved back in with her parents. Her official story is that she and that guy were making out, and he ended up doing it with her while she was too drunk to remember much. She says he's an a-hole but never pressed charges because she feels guilty or thinks she might have let it happen. But mostly, I think she sticks to that story to avoid revealing that she remembers sitting on my lap and messing around. Now there's an amazing 2-year-old little boy living at my in-laws' house, and I see him all the time. We never bring up the kid's dad or that night anymore. Everyone has moved on, and for the most part, everyone seems happy. My sister-in-law is dating a great guy and is set to finish her BA next semester. Meanwhile, my wife and I are doing really well. Last night, we were all at my in-laws' place. My nephew was showing me his toys when suddenly he stopped, dropped them, and gave me a big hug. He rested his head on my shoulder and didn't let go. I completely broke down and have felt awful all day since. Story 5. I accidentally tricked my neighbor into thinking I was depressed when in reality, I was soloing off to people crying. I have this weird thing for people crying. Recently, I've been delving more into that side of myself, trying to really see what I really like while I solo off. That all culminated in me just watching videos of people crying. Nothing inherently inappropriate was going on in those videos, and flapping the fish to that. Since I live alone in my apartment and work at home, I use the TV in my living room. Unfortunately, I underestimated how thin the walls were. I was about to head out to go get some coffee with friends, but saw that someone had left a basket of snacks and chocolate on my door. I thought nothing of it, maybe someone just moved in or something. No other door had this basket, so I don't know why I briefly thought that, but I do have a penchant for dismissing things that aren't actively affecting my life right at that moment. So I just put the basket in my house and went about my day. I got home and snacked on a few of the chocolate and went about my nightly routine of watching those videos. Then I kept getting more and more snacks put out on my front door. Almost every day. Nothing major like the basket I got on the first day, but just little chocolate bars put out on the floor. I just ate the snacks as soon as I saw them in front of my door and almost completely neglected the big basket I got. This went on for a week or so. Then, today, I woke up to someone knocking on my door. When I opened it, it was my neighbor. I've seen her a few times when we coincidentally get out the door at the same time and we've greeted each other. She was holding another basket of snacks and asked me if I was all right from last night and if I got her other basket. Confused, I said I was all right and asked why she was giving those to me. Then, she looked a bit embarrassed and admitted to hearing loud crying coming from my apartment since she lived next door. Crap. She also asked if I saw the note in her basket. I didn't remember seeing a note, but I was too embarrassed to continue this conversation and politely thanked her before accepting her basket and closing the door. Sure enough, there was a note in the first basket that was somewhat buried by the chocolate. If I'd eaten a bit more, I would have realized. It detailed how she'd been hearing me cry for a bit, and then she went on to describe the story of her battles with depression. She then said how she'd love to get to know me, and is there if I wanted to talk about it. What do I do? She seems really cute, and I do want to accept her offer of getting to know her, but I'm not depressed. Story 6. I'm 23, and I married a 57-year-old old man. Yes, I'm a gold digger. I just turned 23 and have been married to my husband for 2 months. He's 11 years older than my dad. I know what people think when they see us together. The older, gray-haired man with his much younger, beautiful wife. They assume I'm a gold digger. Honestly, they're not entirely wrong. My husband is 57, a successful business owner, and very wealthy. I'm a 23-year-old model with a high school diploma and not much else. Sounds like a match made in heaven, right? I never imagined I'd find myself in this situation. I never thought I'd become one of those women I used to quietly judge. Back then, I was head over heels for a young man who seemed perfect for me. He was my age, not wealthy, but we lived like we owned the world. I had never loved anyone like that before. My feelings for him were overwhelming, and I truly believed we'd be together forever. I thought he was my future. But then he cheated on me. I ended things, and suddenly, everything in my life felt like it vanished. When I walked away from him, I left behind a piece of myself, a vital part I'm not sure I'll ever get back. 3 months later, I started dating my now husband. We met at a charity dinner, and I remember thinking he was surprisingly suave for his age. We connected instantly, and within a week, he whisked me away on a trip to Italy. 6 months later, we got engaged. 2 weeks after that, we were married in front of a judge and 20 guests. My family was worried about me. They thought I'd lost my mind. But honestly, I knew exactly what I was doing. I understood that finding love again wasn't likely for me. So why not marry someone who could provide a comfortable life for me and any future children? My husband probably doesn't love me either. He's been divorced twice and, as far as I know, hasn't even said, "I love you" to his own kids, who are all much older than me. Marriage hasn't always been about love or romance. For most of history, it was more like a business deal. That's how I see my marriage. He gets to show me off at events, dinners, parties, using me as a status symbol to impress his friends and ex-wives. Meanwhile, I get to enjoy exotic vacations, dine at the best restaurants, wear designer clothes, and live in beautiful homes. I'll never have to worry about money. Neither will my children or their children after them. I know it's not romantic, but this symbiotic arrangement is what keeps our marriage working. We're both happy with it. Neither of us are victims. We're adults who fully understand what we agreed to when we got married. I know I'm never going to fall in love again, so I might as well be heartbroken in style. As for my ex, he can cry his eyes out while I'm sipping lime mojitos on a beach in the Maldives. Story 7. A little background first. There was this girl I knew from another school, mostly through parties. We weren't close or anything, not really even friends. I actually got invited to prom by a different girl. At the dance, I was friendly and polite to her, just like anyone would be. After prom, like most people, we ended up at an after party. I'm not much of a drinker and usually prefer smoking, but that night I went all in. I was pretty faded from drinking and smoking. At some point, she and I ended up outside alone, and we started kissing. Nothing too crazy, just kissing. Earlier that night, I'd been making out with another girl, and things got a little physical with some mutual handsy stuffs. So, by the time all this happened, I was already pretty worked up, and definitely drunk. I also knew my prom date was likely down to hook up, so I was riding a wave of confidence. The alcohol didn't mellow me out, it did the opposite. It made me super confident to a dangerous point. So back to the screwed up part. Some of the details are a bit blurry because I was pretty drunk, and while she had been drinking too, I don't think she was quite as out of it as I was. At some point while we were making out, I paused and asked if she was on birth control because I was thinking about taking things further. She said she was. I don't know why she said that, because I later found out she wasn't. Things escalated from there, we fooled around a bit, and eventually, we ended up doing it. It was brief, neither of us got to the peak, and I didn't use a rubber. I have been told this, but don't remember, but apparently my date had come out and said that we should go back inside, as that's what the host wanted. I was told she came out twice to get us, and I don't remember either of these times. When I went back inside and found my date, I was still really worked up and riding this overwhelming wave of confidence. Nothing felt off limits to me in that state. We started making out, and I kept trying to push things further, but she kept holding back. She never directly said no, but she said things like slow down or just wait a second. Looking back now, I realized that any sober, respectful person would have taken that as a clear sign to stop, but I wasn't in the right mindset. At the time, I thought what was happening was consensual, but now I'm not so sure. I was too aggressive with her, and earlier, with the other girl too. I hate admitting that, but it's the truth. The first girl, the one who wasn't my prom date, panicked when I asked if she was on birth control and said yes. I don't know why, in my drunken state, I took that as a green light for unprotected bang, but I did. Honestly, I don't even remember consciously deciding to do it. It just happened. But that doesn't change the fact that I pushed forward when I shouldn't have. She was okay with kissing, because to her, it was just kissing, but she never intended for it to go beyond that. And to be honest, I don't think I did either at the start. But that's not the point. What matters is that I ignored what she wanted, and I kept going anyway. I hurt her, whether I meant to or not, because I didn't stop to think, to listen, or to make sure we were on the same page. I don't want to make excuses. The reasons behind what happened aren't important compared to the fact that I crossed a line. And that's something I have to live with and take responsibility for. She said, "Let's go back inside." And I told her to wait, like any idiot would. And she stayed. I wish she had walked away right then, because maybe things wouldn't have gotten worse. She tried to end things, but didn't. When we finally stood up to actually go back in, I asked her to wait again. This time because I wanted to walk with her. Then she spoke, and her voice, it was small. Like a kid asking a parent for something, unsure, scared of the answer. "Can we please go back?" she said. I got up and said yes, not thinking anything of it. According to her version of events, which is probably a lot more accurate than mine, I was relentless. I kept doing that thing where she'd say, "Let's go," and I'd counter with, "Wait," or "Just relax," or something else equally useless. She stayed because I asked her to. I don't know why she didn't walk away. It's not really my place to question her reasons, especially when I'm not even sure of my own. Fast forward a few days. First day back after the weekend. I don't go to school with her, but this is what I was told. She looked distant, hollow, and there were fresh cuts on her arm. She said that I essayed her. From her side of the story, I did. And since my memory of that night is blurry, I believe her. I didn't physically restrain her, but that's not the only way someone can be essayed. She didn't want things to go further than kissing. I wish she had left me standing there, humiliated and alone, but she didn't. Instead, I hurt her in a way I never imagined I could hurt anyone. This isn't something I would wish on anyone. Yet I did it to her. Part of me wants to blame the alcohol, to say it made me into someone I'm not. But that's not an excuse. Nothing excuses this. There's no fixing what I've done. Even if I somehow don't face jail time, she hasn't pressed charges, at least not yet. I broke something in her. There's no way she'll ever be able to see men the same again. How could she? And now, her prom night will always be remembered not as a celebration, but as the worst night of her life. I know I can't fix her. I know I can't undo what I've done. Of course, I want this situation to disappear, but if it does, that means I got away with it. And that would be even worse. I'll accept any punishment that comes my way, because I deserve every bit of it. I don't know if it's even possible to explain how horrible I feel. I broke someone. I changed the course of her life in the worst way. This isn't something I'm brushing off. How could I? I haven't spoken to either of them since. I don't even know how I could. I don't know if anyone will make it to the end of this, but if you're still reading, leave a comment. Just don't be kind. I don't deserve kindness right now. Story 8. I feel like a terrible wife. I'm 28, and I've been with my husband, 31, for 11 years, married for the last 3. We have 2 beautiful children, a happy life, and a great intimate life. About a month ago, a guy, let's call him Sam, messaged me here. We hit it off right away. We became close friends quickly. We had so much in common, and our sense of humor just clicked. Naturally, some light flirting crept in. At first, it felt harmless. But eventually, I started thinking about my husband, how he'd feel if he saw those messages. I knew he wouldn't be okay with it. So I blocked Sam. Day after day, I couldn't stop thinking about Sam. I don't know what it was, but I hated not talking to him. I couldn't resist, and I unblocked him. Once I did, we instantly started talking again. One day, we were discussing about physical intimacy. Then suddenly it led to us exchanging flirty text and pictures, and we ended up soloing off. It didn't feel wrong, though. It felt right. Since then, we have voice chatted, did our solo thing together, and even said, "I love you" to each other. I don't know what's coming over me. I'm in a happy marriage. Nothing is wrong with it. But I can't help feeling like I should be with Sam. It's crazy how connected we are. He only has to say one little thing, and my heart starts pounding. I've never had such big and intenso before. With Sam, I've had the best ever. I've not experienced anything like this. He's always on my mind. I get all hot and bothered just thinking about him. And after all this, part of me doesn't feel bad, which feels so weird. Like I should feel bad, right? I'm so confused by my feelings. Luckily, Sam lives in a different country. But I know for a fact that if I ever saw him face to face, I wouldn't be able to stop myself from banging and jumping down his polo stick. I know I'm a terrible wife, but I feel no guilt. Story 9. I cheated on my fiancée in a horrible way. My fiancée and I have a really strong relationship. We're both super active, into Spartan and warrior races, outgoing, and genuinely love spending time together. We are also very adventurous in bed. We love exploring different kinds of play and experimenting with group stuffs and all. The problem is that while he has been happy to involve other women, something I enjoy as well, he is very hesitant to involve other men. Honestly, he completely refuses to even consider it if it involves any kind of contact between me and another guy. This has become a major issue for me. I've told him, more than once, how much I really want to experience a threescore with another man, but he won't budge. I've even shared how much I enjoy watching him with other women, and that I'd be more than willing to take things slowly, hoping that maybe in time he might come to enjoy seeing me with someone else too. Still, it's a firm no. I suggested we try connecting with another couple and gradually exploring a partner swap to ease into it. Again, no. He says he's willing to stop involving other women altogether to keep things fair, and while I appreciate that and love him for trying to compromise, it's just not what I'm looking for. In the fall of 2012, I came up with a plan. My fiancé isn't into football, while I absolutely love it. So, on Sundays, he usually stays home reading or coding, and I head over to watch the games with some friends, mostly people from work. But this time, I had something different in mind. I decided to post a Craigslist ad, aiming to find a group of 2 to 4 guys to watch the games with each week, and potentially take things further from there. I wrote the ad, posted it, and even exchanged a few messages with guys who said they had friends who'd be into it. But in the end, I got cold feet and let the whole thing go. Fast forward to this fall. I found myself thinking about it all over again. My fiancé still hadn't changed his stance, not even a little. So I reposted the ad, only this time I followed through. I connected with a group of guys I genuinely enjoyed spending time with, and we started watching games together at a bar while I eased into the idea. Eventually, I went through with it. The first time was a bit awkward, but honestly, it was incredible despite that. The hard part came afterward. When I got home, I felt awful, disgusted with myself and overwhelmed with guilt. I went for a run to try and clear my head, then broke down in the shower and cried for about 20 minutes. And yet, despite all that, I've done it 6 more times, including just last Saturday. I'm incredibly torn. I feel ashamed and dirty, like I've betrayed my fiancé. He started to notice that I've been pulling away from being intimate with him, and while he's been nothing but kind, sensitive, patient, and understanding, I know it's hurting him. A couple of years ago, I was essayed at work, and I think he's worried something like that happened again. I haven't had the heart to tell him that's not the case. Lately, I've been sad almost all the time, feeling like I'm stuck in a situation with no real way out. And what's strange is, I know I could never cheat on him with just one other person. But there's something about this group thing that deeply appeals to me, something I want in a way I can't explain, and it's something I know I'll never have with him. I'm not even sure what I'm hoping to get out of posting this. I know there's nothing inherently wrong with the desires I have. What's wrong are the choices I made. Betraying my fiancé was a huge mistake. I love him deeply, and part of me wants to come clean. But I also know it would break him. The strange thing is, I honestly believe he'd try to understand. I think he'd stay. But I also know that even if he did, a part of him would be shattered. And Story 10. I'm having an affair with my mom's boyfriend. I don't even know where to begin. I guess some context might help. My dad passed away when I was 9, and about 6 months later, my mom started seeing someone. Let's call him Joe. I always had a sense that something was going on between them, but they didn't actually tell me they were together until I was around 12, and he moved in not long after that. My mom said they kept it quiet for so long because they didn't want me to be upset. Joe had been a good friend of my dad's, and I'd known him for most of my life. My mom is amazing, the hardest working person I've ever known. She's sacrificed so much to give me a better life. That's what makes this whole situation so much harder to deal with. Because of her job, she's often away for long stretches, and even when she's home, she's working 11-hour days, so she's really just there to eat and sleep. Joe is a few years younger than my mom and works from home, so when she's gone, he's practically always around. We've always gotten along, but I wouldn't have called us friends until maybe the last couple of years. And this is where things start to get complicated. The affair officially began just over a year ago, but things had been building before that. Joe and I started getting closer when my mom's job became more demanding, and she began spending a lot more time away. At first, I thought it was pretty great. He'd order takeout almost every night and let me stay up playing PlayStation until sunrise. The only times I felt uncomfortable were when he'd ask me about my relationships, whether I was involved intimately with someone, or if I was doing solo sessions. I usually brushed it off with a laugh, but over time, he became more persistent, and we ended up having some pretty graphic conversations. I want to be clear, I'm not gay, and Joe says he isn't either. Before all this, I'd never thought about guys in such way. And honestly, I hate to admit it, but I had a girlfriend for most of this time. I'm really confused about everything. Fast forward a few months, and the weekends when my mom was away started to feel increasingly strange. By then, it didn't feel weird when Joe asked me personal questions. I was comfortable enough with him to answer. I figured it was probably the kind of conversation I might have had with my dad if he were still around. We started flirting a bit, but nothing too explicit. It mostly felt like playful teasing. That changed when he started being touchy-feely with me, stroking my arms, grabbing my A as he walked by, things like that. I never thought to stop it because, honestly, I was kind of into it. I knew I had feelings for him by then. I wasn't trying to encourage it, but I didn't want it to stop either. The first time anything really happened was just after I turned 18. Joe had been visiting his parents over my birthday, but he came back the weekend after since my mom had to work again. He suggested we have a beer together, saying that's probably what my dad would have wanted to do with me on my birthday. His comment about my dad really hit me hard, and the drinking didn't help. I don't think about my dad often because I don't remember him well, but when I do, it's painful. Thinking about all the moments I'll miss, like sharing my first beer with him or having him at my graduation. I started opening up to Joe, telling him all this, and then I just broke down crying like a kid. He hugged me, trying to comfort me, and then out of nowhere, he kissed me. I was shocked, but I didn't stop him. This might sound ridiculous. I just didn't want him to leave if I said no. So, I stopped crying, and we're making out on the couch. We ended up helping each other to do solo. It just kind of progressed from there. Everything is completely normal whenever my mom's here, but as soon as she's gone, we act like a couple. At first it was mostly intimate stuff, but then we started saying I love you to each other, and it just got really intense really quickly. I even sleep with him in their bed when my mom isn't here. I feel so frigging awful about it, because now it doesn't feel like I can do anything. Part of me wishes I'd told my mom right in the beginning when he started having those inappropriate conversations with me, but it feels like it's too late now. The biggest problem is I think I really do love him, but I kind of hate him at the same time. It's taken me this long to start doubting everything because of something that happened just a few days ago. I told Joe that maybe I wanted to stop all of this because I'm really scared we're going to get caught. He got incredibly pissed off. We'd never had a real argument before, but this turned into a huge fight. He blamed me, saying I was the one who started it all by flirting with him and giving mixed signals. I told him I wanted to stop because I feel awful about what it would do to my mom if she ever found out. That's when he told me he wants to break up with my mom and be with me exclusively once I turn 19. I said I needed time to think. Then he tried to bang me, but I wasn't into it at all. I made that very clear. I even had to threaten to punch him before he finally stopped. That just pissed him off more, and he threatened to post pictures and videos of me online if I didn't go along with it. I don't think he was serious. I've never let him take any photos or videos, and I'd have noticed if he had. Plus, I told him to F off and he left. He never actually posted anything like he said he would. He hasn't been back since. He called my mom and told her we had a big argument about my grades or something, so he's staying with a friend until he's ready to come home. When my mom asked me about it, I told her the same story, and now I really regret not telling her the truth. He's still at his friend's place, and my mom is trying to convince him to come back so we can make up, but I'm not sure if that's what I want. I want to tell her everything, but I'm afraid. Story 11. For the past 3 months, I've been sleeping with my old boss in exchange for rent money. I hate him, and I hate myself for it. I was working an internship at a law firm, and as it was coming to an end, I struggled to find another job. Feeling desperate, I accepted my boss's vague proposition. I understood what he was implying. I told myself it would only be a one-time thing, but after the internship ended, he kept texting me, offering help. I needed it. Before I knew it, a month had passed, and I had withdrawn so deeply into myself that it became a routine. To make things even harder, I had reconnected with an old boyfriend about a month before all this started. We weren't sure about our status, but it was clear we were falling for each other again. Fast forward 3 months, and I still haven't been able to find a job. The constant rejection, combined with the weight of what I was doing, left me numb and exhausted. I finally told my boyfriend the truth, and now I fear I've lost him forever. The thought of losing him is unbearable, but at the same time, I have no other way to pay rent or cover my loans right now. The way he looked at me after I told him made me feel worse than I ever have. I've been sick to my stomach ever since. I know he'll never see me the same way again, and I'm at a loss for what to do. He said he needs time, and I respect that, but I'm terrified that because he lives only half an hour away, it'll be easier for him to just walk away and move on. Whether he comes back or not, finally telling someone made the reality of everything I'd been pushing down painfully clear. It sparked something in me, a fire to find a job, any job, so I can get out. My boyfriend thinks my old boss, who I'd listed as a reference, was purposely giving me bad reviews to keep me dependent. I'm not sure if I believe that, but after more than 13 interviews with no offers, maybe he's right. Either way, I'm not listing him anymore, and we'll see what happens. I'm not really looking for advice. I just needed to say this out loud. Edit. I had my roommate call him, pretending to be from a temp agency. My boyfriend was right. Before she even asked a single question, he started bad-mouthing me. Which, honestly, worked out since we didn't really know what to ask. She listed me as a reference? I didn't even know. If she had asked, I would have told her I can't, in good conscience, give her a positive review. She should find someone else. I guess there was no one else. Good conscience? Does that guy even have a conscience? I want to confront him about this, but at the same time, I just want to curl up in a ball and disappear. Story 12. I fell in love with my first cousin. It all happened on the night I first got drunk. I am 18 female, and I decided to go over to my 22-year-old cousin's house to drink. I had a boyfriend who was 19, but he wasn't allowed to come. As soon as I got buzzed, I started to look at my cousin in a different light. Of course I didn't do anything, because I was afraid that he didn't feel the same. So, I tried to keep my distance. I couldn't get the thoughts out of my head. I totally forgot about my boyfriend at this time. All I could think about was my cousin. It scared me because I didn't know if it was normal to think that way toward a family member. I tried to ignore it for the rest of the night, and eventually I passed out on the couch. The next morning, when I got sober, I still had the same feelings. And I still remembered everything from that night. But when he woke up, he kept his distance from me. I didn't know why. I got kind of depressed. I talked to my boyfriend after lunch, and he was mad at me of how much I drank. For a first-time drinker, I drank about 5 or 6 Mike's Hard Lemonades and a fourth of a bottle of wine. I was literally shit-faced. That day, my boyfriend and I got into an argument and didn't speak for the rest of it. Wanting some space, I decided to spend another night at my cousin's place. After 2 days of drinking, we ended up going for another round. This time, I probably had about 6 or 7 Mike's Hard Lemonades, and my cousin finished off the rest. We were both pretty buzzed, and the feelings I had for him started to intensify. I was getting restless just sitting on the couch, so I picked up my cousin's butterfly knife and absent-mindedly started flipping it around. As soon as he saw me with it, he got concerned and tried to take it away, worried I might hurt myself. I refused and playfully ran into the kitchen, but he followed me. That's when he cornered me, backing me up against the wall. By that point, I was nervous. I closed my eyes, half expecting, half hoping, he would kiss me. He gently took the knife from my hand, and then he did. Just one kiss. I was stunned and immediately wondered if it was just the alcohol. But in that moment, I couldn't stop myself from kissing him back. We kissed a few more times, 3 or 4 at most, before his girlfriend, who was also 22, called him into another room. No one had seen us. After he left, I went to the couch and sat there, caught between confusion and something that felt like love. He came back into the living room and sat at his computer, and I just watched him for a moment before heading to his room to lie down. I needed time to process everything. A few minutes later, he came in and lay down next to me. I wanted so badly to do more, but his girlfriend was still in the other room. So I whispered, "Kiss me," and he did. We began to make out. A minute goes by, and he tells me he doesn't want to get caught, so he left to get back on his computer. I said okay and let him go. I got up and went to sit on the front porch to think about what just happened, and he came out to sit with me. We talked about how we felt, and he told me that he had feelings for me. I was blushing and I got really shy. So we decided to go inside after it started raining. I was lying on the couch, starting to feel drowsy, but I managed to stay awake. Once everyone else had gone to bed, my cousin and I were still up. Somehow things escalated. We started kissing and making out. We didn't take it any further since we didn't have any protection. Later that night, I ended up passing out. That morning, I woke up to the sound of his girlfriend leaving for a walk. As soon as she stepped outside, I got up and went to where my cousin was sleeping. I crawled into bed beside him and drifted back to sleep. The rest of the day was pretty uneventful, and nothing much happened until I headed home the next day. My mother wasn't home, or my little brother, and he needed to drop off my teddy bear that I left. When he got to my house, we started kissing and making out once again. I wanted him so bad. Luckily, I had protection and so we did it. I don't regret it. But I felt different about my boyfriend. I felt like I didn't love him the same. So, a few days later I dumped him. And now my cousin is going to dump his girlfriend who hasn't given him any intimacy for over 2 years. Should I feel bad that I did this? That I cheated? Story 13. So, I won't be using real names, but let's start the story off with me. My name's Zach. I had just spent a week at my cousin's place. Her name's Lana. Funny thing is, I didn't even know she existed until a few months ago, but somehow, I already cared about her a lot. And not just in a she's family kind of way. Say what you want, but yeah, I caught feelings for my cousin. Though to be fair, she's barely even related to me. Something like a distant link through a broken marriage. Anyway, right before I went to visit, I found out something that changed everything. She felt the same way. Now let's talk about the actual week. Lana and I are both stoners, so naturally a lot of our time was spent smoking. And well, banging. Yeah, wild as it sounds, I'm from New York. Anyway, she was on some kind of internal birth control. You know, the kind that goes up there and supposedly keeps things safe. I figured that was enough, so I didn't bother with the protection. We ended up doing it 4 or 5 times, but I only painted the inside twice. But honestly, that wasn't even the worst part of the week, crazy as that sounds. I wouldn't be sharing this story if it ended there. So like I mentioned earlier, I've always been pretty chill when it comes to smoking. I've never really been into anything addictive, and we'd never gave me that kind of pull, so I felt pretty safe using it. One popular way to smoke is using a blunt, which for those who don't know, is when you take a cigar, empty it out, and fill it with your own mix. Pretty standard. So there I was in the car, just vibing and smoking a blunt with a couple of friends. Then I overheard someone say something like, "Man, I needed that toe back," and my heart dropped. That's when it hit me. I'd smoked half a cigar by myself without knowing. And let me tell you, that was the first time I ever felt the effects of it. It was not a good time. I've always been really against cigarettes, so that rush messed me up bad. I ended up having to step outside the car, and, yeah, I threw up. All of that went down about a week ago. And just when I thought things were settling, I got a text from my cousin today. She said her period's late. Yeah, not gonna lie, that shook me up a bit. Nothing's confirmed yet. She even took a test, but of course, with my luck, it came back with an error. I've been feeling pretty overwhelmed with everything. It's a lot to process. But at the same time, I don't really want it to end. The truth is, I care about her a lot. I love the moments we've shared, and yeah, I still enjoy smoking. But one thing's for sure, I've confirmed I definitely still hate tobacco. I just needed to put all of that out there. Thanks for listening. TLDR, I went on a crazy party week out of town and may have got my cousin pregnant and accidentally smoked a cigar. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update.